In the 1970s and 1980s, colleges and universities came under increasing pressure by students, faculty, and a large segment of the general public to divest in apartheid South Africa. Social pressure was also brought to bear on organizations doing business in the country marked by social injustice. The pressure was successful, and eventually the ensuing capital flight signaled the global rejection of an apartheid state. In 1994, fair elections resulted in Nelson Mandela becoming the leader of the newly established democratic nation. Today, we see the same protest energy building as peoples of all nations face the risks associated with climate change. University students across the United States and globally are staging protests, sit-ins, and occupying academic administrative buildings in attempts to pressure institutional divestment from fossil fuel companies. On a broader social and political stage, the largest climate change protest in history drew over 300,000 supporters to New York for the People's Climate March this September. This event coincided with the United Nations Climate Summit held the same month. As further evidence of the success of increasing pressure to catalyze a response to the crises, this September, the Rockefeller family joined 800 other organizations and announced they were overall divesting about $50 billion from fossil fuel corporations over the next 5 years and plan on reinvesting in organizations that have a sustainable paradigm. The question now is, what does any of this have to do with professional writing and organization? CSR, that's what. What is CSR? CSR is the acronym for a Corporate Sustainability Report. Sustainability reporting reflects voluntary organizational or corporate efforts to conduct business in an environmentally friendly way. As might be anticipated, reports offer statistics highlighting energy use reductions, durable good reductions, statistics on the percentage of recycling the organization achieves, and the like. What becomes evident is that sustainability can be quantified through metric systems as well as through narrative texts. Let's do a walkabout inside this CSR, which is easily accessible by typing UPS Sustainability into the Google machine. UPS has created a unique website for communicating its actions towards sustainability. The main UPS Sustainability Report is an impressive 116-page downloadable document. There is a 7-page supplemental report. There is a brochure that provides highlights from the report in an easily digestible document. There are 2 infographics indicating materiality and key performance indicators. Imagine the number of writing communities or ecologies it took to create this massive document. You might think UPS is unique and overachieving in its efforts to produce such a sophisticated document, but you'd be wrong. Their main competitor, FedEx, has a similar website with similar features, and so does the USPS, the United States Postal Service, although theirs is considerably less sophisticated and considerably less lengthy, coming in at a mere 21 pages. As for overachieving, let's just say there's a method to their madness. According to the research of Robert Eccles, professor of management practices at Harvard's Business School, sustainability matters to an organization's bottom line. As a matter of fact, in 2011, based on his examination of 180 companies for an 18-year period, Eccles asserts that in the long term, high sustainability firms outperform low sustainability firms. While informative from a corporate perspective, these statistics point to the distinct upward potential for constructing sustainability reporting documents that communicate an organization's environmentally responsible activities. This is a good moment to take a brief look backward. Sustainability reports entered the professional communication discourse during the 1960s. That's not to say there were none in the 1950s, and that's also not to say there was an abundance of them by the 70s when environmental protection became a global process of government. In the U.S., between 1970 and 1972, the EPA was established, the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Acts were passed in direct response to environmental catastrophes such as Love Canal, the 1969 event when the Ohio Cuyahoga River caught fire and burned. Moreover, at the 1972 World Conference on the Human Environment, a paradigm was established that argued economic development could actually improve the environment rather than simply exploit and deplete it. The term sustainability wasn't even coined until 1987. By 1992, at yet another UN conference on the environment, it became quite clear that ecologically sustainable development had crystallized into an approach that was clear and applicable for business organizations. So why does this history matter? Well, it matters because of the reception early sustainability reports received and because of how they were presented. Initially, reports, if there were any at all, were included as a singular page in annual financial reports for stakeholders. Reporting on social environmental issues in the 70s was viewed as a fad or a trend, and predictions were that the practice would fizzle. Certainly, organizations didn't exhibit much enthusiasm for reporting on sustainable practices. For expedience, I'm going to cite Naomi Soderstrom quoting Nola Burr in her book, Sustainability in Accounting. Quote, in the 1970s, according to a study conducted by Ernst & Ernst, fewer than 1% of Fortune 500 companies provided separate social responsibility booklets along with annual reports, end quote. Compare that to the complex UPS documents we just saw. The sustainability reports of today, as we see in the UPS documents, are sophisticated, complex, and thorough. They disclose information about compliance with government-regulated codes, laws, and policies. These rules determine the frequency of reporting on particular aspects of normal business function, but intermittent reporting does not affect the practice of creating these annual documents that have an overall view of the organization's actions. Let's go back and take a look at the UPS report. If we unpack it, what we see is that their sustainability report is not limited to environmental regulation and green considerations alone. Notice one of the main tabs, UPS Foundation. When we click on the link, we see reporting on the philanthropic work UPS is engaged in. Diversity, volunteerism, community safety, and environment are not only feature tabs linking to specific aspects of UPS's activities, but are lengthy corresponding narrative and statistical sections within the report. What we recognize is demonstrable and significant content that is centered on philanthropic and values activities. At this point, what we can say with certainty is that the content and composition demands of reporting is highly dynamic. So dynamic, in fact, that sometimes sustainability reports are referred to as corporate social responsibility reports. This crossover makes understanding, writing, and researching CSRs a bit tricky. Here's why. Often, organizations combine science-driven sustainability information and social aspects of responsible practices such as employee relations, ethics, philanthropy, and community engagement. And therein lies a great challenge for professional writers. How do they deliver a meaningful message when there is interchangeability of terms for a document that is constantly emerging in scope and content? To highlight the point, take a look at what is generally regarded as the most used definition of sustainable development. It comes from the 1987 book, Our Common Future, which is also known as the Brundtland Report. Sustainability development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. It contains within it two key concepts. The concept of needs, in particular the essential needs of the world's poor, to which overriding priority should be given, and the idea of limitations imposed by the state of technology and social organization on the environment's ability to meet present and future needs. The breadth of this definition, which is but one of over 100 documented definitions, begins to explain the conundrum of a consistent application for social and sustainability reporting across all organizations. Recall, if you will, the social activism anecdotes we opened with. What they highlight is the fact that organizations and their behavior are subject to social pressure as they operate in the capital markets. No longer solely beholden to profit margins and invested shareholders, the lines of corporate obligation are extending outward to encompass broad reaches of society and the planet. Community values and visions are helping to drive the agenda. Much of the current professional literature being produced on CSRs focuses on that expansive view of organizational activity. Stakeholder theories are being re-examined and revising, moving the external positioning of stakeholders to an internal position. Philanthropic and long-term socially responsible activities are being demanded by traditional shareholders, employees, and the general public alike. Top-down management strategies may not constitute standard operating procedure anymore, especially considering the rapid and far-reaching power of social media. What this shifting dynamic means, too, is that the nature of organizational communication will have to respond and shift as well. Let's listen for a minute to John Elliott, the Chief Sustainability Officer for the University of California Merced campus, as he presents an overview of the sustainability actions he has overseen.
So we'll start at kind of the highest level, and maybe the highest, one of the highest level lessons learned, and that's to express your sustainability goals rigorously but succinctly, and at a very high level. So in the case of UC Merced, we can do it with just 2 words, 000. We often do it with 3 words, which is the 000 commitment, and that is a commitment that to zero net energy, zero landfill waste, and climate neutrality, or zero net greenhouse gas emissions by 2020.
So, his communicative concerns regarding delivering the sustainability information to a variety of audiences reflect sound communication practice. However, what must be considered is that he has traversed sectoral dimensions of sustainability messaging. What I mean here is that he has communicated hard science for a broad public audience while also considering He has communicated hard science for a broad public audience while also considering community values. To that point, increasing research is examining the moral component of sustainability language to determine if present-day CSRs reflect ethical discourse. In order to have that discussion, some are keen to define the relational role of the stakeholder. Do organizations consider the No, this is where I changed. Okay. To that point, increasing research is examining the moral component of sustainability language to determine if present-day CSRs reflect ethical discourse. In order to have that discussion, some are keen to define the relational role of the stakeholder. Do organizations consider their expectations and, more importantly, the interests of the community? Do they really understand the stakeholder, or are they merely paying lip service to the loudest activists? Are they a phrase coined in 1994 by John Elkington that denotes the 3 pillars of sustainability, the financial, social, and environmental bottom lines for an organization? Equally as important, are stakeholders earnestly engaging with organizations, or are they satisfied to villainize them and nothing more? Consider the fact that stakeholder interests, even those who are not shareholders, are at least embedded into CSRs. One of the most frequently articulated views encountered in the American research on CSRs is skepticism. Much of the discussion characterizes the reports as vanity reports, feel-good reports, or corporate trophies that better serve as doorstops than informative reading. I'm not sure if that is a cultural peculiarity, but considering they are a voluntary effort and are only as transparent as the organization wants them to be, this sentiment has some merit. However, for many, these reports are a way to inform patronage and job market choices. Actually, there is strong and current research that indicates employees, millennials in particular, are concerned with the sustainability activities of the organizations they work for. The prevalence of European, Asian, and Australian research on CSRs reflects the markedly environmental aspects of organizational efforts towards sustainability. Perhaps this is because they've been doing them longer than the United States has. Maybe there is a presupposition by organizations that stakeholders have prioritized the environment over all else. So let's look backward one last time before we look to the future. Sustainability reports emerged in direct response to challenges posed not only by the UN, but by global citizens who were outraged at ecological abuses and foresaw only more of the same. What started as corporate ecological reporting has now turned into reporting on social action as well. This was probably inevitable given that communities and society are the drivers behind sustainability development. What may be the most instructive in attempting to predict the future of sustainability development and the resultant documents marking sustainability progress is this. Here is Charlie Hargrove's take on the future. In his book, The Natural Edge, he includes this diagram that provides a look into the sixth wave of innovation, a whole new future filled with new technologies. As humans and corporations continue to progress and innovate, no doubt much will be written to explain innovative changes and sustainable successes to a broad audience. Much will have to be written because there's no way to turn back.